All right, I'm just going to do a quick test to make sure that this is working the way it's supposed to. All right. Oh, that's weird. Okay, we will just... There. Because clearly that's not going to work. Okay. So, today's my favorite day. It's the point day. It's kind of my jam. I love point. Before I get started, there is just a little bit more time for you to win a free pair of Apollo shocks. You can enter by submitting a question on the Google form under this video. At the end of my session, I'm going to be going through and answering some of those questions. I've already gotten quite a few really good ones, so we're going to spend some time just answering those. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I look for in point. I get a lot of questions about that, and you know, what I look for as far as being ready for point and the dangers of point work. And I want to start with the dangers of point work because point is a risk. It's not 100% safe. It's safe if it's done well, but if it's done poorly or if it's done without being ready, then you can end up with some major issues, really bad injuries. And so one of the biggest things that I find is dancers who are not ready. Dancers who are not ready for point work being put on. And there's a couple different things that could go wrong. They could be too young. I don't like to put girls on point before the age of 12. I will put you on if you're 11, but you got to be one serious 11-year-old. And ideally, it's not a requirement for me, but ideally I would like for the young lady to have already gotten her monthly cycle. That tells me that her bones are basically done growing, but they're still soft enough that they can be molded and get a higher arch if that's something that she wants, or obviously that I don't have to worry about the bones fusing together. And so some of the dangers of point work, if you have two bones that are like this, okay, let's say the bones in the feet, and there's the squishy stuff, the cartilage in between. When a young child is put on point, there is a lot of pressure put on the cartilage, and what can happen if the bones are still too soft is the bones will actually fuse together. And that is a big issue when it comes to articulating, because now you can't articulate. There's no movement here. It's just solid. And so there's been a lot of times where young ladies have to actually have surgery involving lasers and having their bones in the feet surgically broken so that they can actually walk. And I think that is just so ridiculous for a young child to have to go through that when it could have been easily prevented by just waiting a couple years. Another issue that can happen is the bones grow in response to pressure. So let's say you have let's just use a callus as an example. When you develop a callus, you have a significant amount of pressure being put on one part of your skin, and you're going to end up with calluses. The skin grows extra skin in response to the pressure that's being put on the body in that particular place. Bones do the same thing. And so if you have a bone, let's say you have a young lady standing up on the tips of her toes like this, and she has a lot of pressure being put on her bones. The bones can actually grow in response to the pressure. They can develop like large sort of protective areas, or they can start growing different directions. If the toes are not totally flat and lined up, maybe they're crossed just a little bit, or if one toe is not totally lined up like this, then the toe can end up actually growing outward in a very painful direction, and that's going to end up with a lot of bone-on-bone grinding. The more bone-on-bone grinding you have, the more arthritis you end up with. And then the other thing is, again, that bone-on-bone grinding. When you have a student who, let's say in my case, when I was younger, I got on point, my feet were very flat, and I ended up stretching my feet out, and I got a much higher arch than my body should have gotten. And so where my foot used to be pointed like this, now my foot is pointed like this. Now the cartilage isn't where it belongs. There's no cartilage between the joints in the spot that it needs to be, and so you have bone-on-bone grinding, which leads to arthritis. So I don't want to scare anybody out of point, because point is great, and point, like I said, it's not dangerous if it's done correctly, but it is a risk, and you do have to be careful with it. And there are a lot of teachers out there who will put a student on point when they're not ready, and there are a lot of situations that I have seen where if a teacher won't put their student on point, the family will leave and go to another studio where they will be put on point. And that is just really, really scary and not safe. And parents, please, 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 please educate yourselves on point work before you put your student on point or allow your student to be put on point. There's a lot of resources out there for you. I've written 8 articles, made 3 videos, and I'm writing a book on it. So if you want any of those links, just go to Beyond the Bar. And it's all pretty available. I do have a book coming out in hopefully January, if I can get it all finished, called Getting the Point. And it's all about pre-point. It's about training your dancer and making sure that they're ready. And so, like I said, there's 3... there's a lot of dangers of point, but there's 3 things that I look for as far as a student being ready for point. And the first one is muscle strength. So, like I said, your bones can grow in response to the pressure, or they can grow and fuse together. But if the muscles surrounding the bones are strong enough to support the body weight, then you don't have that problem. So you do have to have a significant amount of strength, not just in your feet, but in other places as well. So in the hips, in the back, in the shoulders, in the rotation, in the knees, even in the neck and in the arms, if you want to avoid issues there. Because anything, if the foot is the foundation of the body and everything kind of ricochets up from there, weakness in your knee or in your lower back can cause pain in your head or in your neck or in your shoulders. So it does matter that the dancer is strong all the way around the body rather than just in the feet or rather than just in the turnout. Flexibility, not such a concern for me because kind of like what we talked about yesterday, flexibility is something that needs to be practiced and it can be gained. It's a reflex and it's something that you can train for. And so, super flexibility is not a concern for me when it comes to point work. If a student's foot is so flat that they cannot point their foot in a straight line, that's going to be a big red flag. Because that could mean that when they do go up onto point, they literally cannot get up onto the platform of the shoe, and that's going to cause a lot of pain and possibly tendonitis in the Achilles tendon and in the what is that called? Tibialis anterior. Strength, super important. The next thing I look for is really good technique. You can be the strongest person in the world, but if your muscle memory is not great, if you don't roll up all the way every single time correctly, then you can injure yourself very quickly, right? So let's say you are rolling up onto point and you're not turned out because you weren't thinking about it. You shouldn't have to think about it. Your technique should be so ingrained by the time you go on point that you don't have to remind yourself to stretch your legs, or you don't have to remind yourself to press the shoulders down. It should be so ingrained in you that you don't have to think about it. Because if you are thinking about it, you're going to end up thinking about too many things at once, and that's going to lead to an injury. And then the third thing that I look for is really good learning curve towards dance and towards me as a teacher. So if I have a student who is very, very technically skilled, very strong, but doesn't take correction well, I am not putting them on point because it just takes one time for them to ignore me or ignore correction. And they're looking at, 6 months off and a doctor visit and a boot, and I don't want to deal with that. I don't want them to have to deal with that. And then also the learning curve and the strength curve. If it takes a really, really, really long time for you to connect with what I'm saying and make a change in your technique, then point can be a risk, because when it comes to point work, if I give you a correction, it's probably a correction so that you don't die or so that you don't hurt yourself really badly. And you need to be able to apply that correction right away without any sort of, oh yeah, I forgot, you told me to do that. Like it needs to change immediately. And so all of those things together kind of are what I look for as far as a student being ready for point. So I am going to introduce my dancers real quick. I've got two of my students here with me, Caroline and Sarah, and they are going to be demonstrating some stuff for me so that I don't have to. And so the first three things that we're going to demonstrate are my tells. I have 3 tells that I look for students executing these steps or executing these movements, and if they cannot do them, I know they're not ready for point work, and I'm going to break them down for you and show you what I look for, and just make it really clear. So I am going to, let's see, we're going to unplug my computer, and ladies, we're going to head over to the mat over in the corner. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can totally send them to me on Facebook or in the Google form underneath. Those are the 2 things that I'm monitoring today. So let's see, what is the best way to set this up? Okay. I need like a little table or something, and I don't have one. Okay, so let me have you guys, one person here and one person here, and I would like you, Caroline, why don't you face me, and Sarah, why don't you face that way, so that you're feet facing? Yeah, so I want you to be like square to me, and then I want you to be square to there, and then I'm going to have you lay flat on your back. We're going to do the plies on the ceiling. Okay, and so this is one of the exercises that I do to basically check and see where the strength level is and where the turnout is coming from and whether they're cheating or not, because this exercise is almost impossible to cheat. And so we're going to have the arms flat on the ground, the back of the neck is long, we're going to put the legs straight up in the air so that we are 90 degrees with flat flexed feet, standing in first position on the ceiling. And so just really quick breakdown, we're going to do a demi-plie in first position. And we're going to make sure that we're really rotating from the hip here. And you're going to see whether the student is pronating and forcing the foot open or whether they are nice and lined up. And then we're going to stretch all the way straight. And then we're going to articulate onto point. And then we're going to flex. Good. And ladies, push your legs down for just a second. And so there's a couple key things that I look for when doing this exercise. And I'm going to have you do it again, and we're going to go real slow. I'm going to point little things out, and then I'm going to switch over to you so that we can see from another perspective. That's why I have you guys laying opposite directions. Okay, so Caroline, if you can put your legs up one more time. And you can do this in any position. I prefer to start in first. And so we're going to start, we're really going to make sure that we're rotated from the hip. And the very first thing that you're going to see is the knees are not going to be all the way straight. So what I like to do is when a muscle has a point A and a point B, the point A is going to be the origin and the point B is going to be the insertion. And so for Caroline's thigh muscle, for her rectus femoris, the point A is going to be in the hip and the point B is going to be right around the kneecap. And so if the legs are not straight, I like to gently tap the insertion point, and that will help them get the legs all the way straight. And then really, really, really going to rotate from the hip. Good, and then pointing through the heels so that we're really, really pressing and lengthening the backs of the legs. And so then here, when we demi-plie, I don't want you to just bend your knees. I want you to turn your knobs as you bend the knees. Very good. Keep bending, keep bending. We're going to double check this foot. Good. Okay. And then if a student is struggling with rotation, I will come and put my leg next to them and press the legs open so that we can see just how much rotation we can get. And some younger students, when they do this, sometimes they'll bring their legs down over here a little bit, and that's going to really make them lock into their thighs and lock into their hip flexors. And so you really want to make sure that their legs are 90 degrees perpendicular to the floor so that they're standing on the ceiling. Okay, and then we're going to let go of your legs. We're going to stretch all the way straight and really turn out the knobs as you stretch straight. Good. And really, really push. Yeah, I know your legs are getting sore. And then articulate up onto point. Good. And then right around here, we're going to lose some rotation. That's natural. So you really want to rotate and stretch, 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 and flex. And pull the chest back. Good. Okay, push your legs. Yeah, we don't normally go that slow. So I'm going to move over to here just a little bit so we can see it from the side. And I'm going to pull around and stand on the side there. Okay, so lips in the air and flex. Good, and turn out. Very nice. And so demi-plie, really turn the knobs as you open. Good. And we're going to double check the feet and really point through the heels. And so then another thing that you can do is I like to put my hands on their feet and have you press your heels up towards the ceiling, lengthen the back of the legs. Good, and turn out, turn out, turn out. Very nice. And then here, when she presses to point, slowly articulate up onto point for me. I can feel the intrinsic muscles in the toes and feel her toes going nice and slow, articulating, and keep rotating. Yes. So again, right as we turn out, or excuse me, right as we go up onto point in this position, the turnout always goes. Always, 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 always. It's just the way our bodies are programmed. So teachers really make sure that they are, go back to flex for me again real quick. As you point the toe, I want you to think of spiraling and lengthening the leg up towards the ceiling. Go ahead. Very good, very good. And then pulling the toes back to flex and pointing through the heels towards the ceiling. Very nice. Okay, go ahead and put your legs down. And so that's an exercise that can be done in first position. It can also be done in second position, a very small second position. I don't like to have a huge second because then you end up with a lot of loss of rotation. If you do it in fifth, you have to make sure the student is not overcrossing the fifth. It can be very powerful done in fifth, and it's a great way to teach Susu. But you will see right away if the student is ready for point, because they will literally not be able to straighten their legs. They will not be able to point their toes. They will not be able to turn out. And if they can't do those things, that means they're using the floor to dance too much. They're not using their muscles, or it means that they're cheating when they're dancing, which is, it's just so easy to do. When you have the floor to hold your position, it's just really easy to cheat. And so that's why I like to take the floor away. Let's see, what do I have written down over here? Oh, breaking at the ankle, that's my second tell. So if you guys can both stand up for me. And let's stay here, and one of you, let's just both of you hold the stretch bar as if it were a ballet bar, okay? And I'm gonna put this over here. Perfect. Okay, and if you guys could turn out the first position for me. So this is called breaking at the ankle, and this is something that you do in point shoes, but I have my girls do it flat as well before I put them on point. So if you can elevate to first position for me. What I'm gonna have you do is we're gonna keep the ankles exactly where they are. They're gonna stay stable, but you're gonna bend the knees. Okay, so I'm gonna have you, you have very high arches. This is very difficult for you. Go back onto straight legs. We're pulling the ankles back, so bend the knee, and we're keeping the ankle where it is. There we go, that's better. Okay, and I'm going to let go of you. And so, yes, and so if we can see some wiggling happening here, that is a sign. Just go ahead and stretch the legs straight and put the heels down. That is a sign of weakness within the intrinsic muscles. Intrinsic just means that the muscle starts within the foot, and it's probably a skeletal muscle. So it's attached to the bones rather than a superficial muscle, which is like the soleus or the grass stalks. And so it's deep within the foot. It's a little bit harder to access, but it's really important to see my tells. It'll tell me if a student is strong enough for point. So let's go ahead and go to parallel position, ladies. And we're going to do the same thing. Elevate straight up. And we're going to break at the ankle and keep the ankle where it is. Go ahead, break at the ankle. Good. And so we can see a little bit of shaking on this foot, but not as much on this foot. And go ahead and straighten the legs. and roll down. So that's also an excellent way to see which foot is stronger. Really important to know which foot is stronger so that you can strengthen the weaker one. And then, raising to the point on the ground. So let's go ahead and have you guys get in domino position on this wall, on this one right here. So sit against the wall, turn around. You're going to put the feet against the wall in first position, demi-plie. Sit up, sit up, sit up, sit up. On your bottom. There you go. Yes, but on the floorboard. I forget who I've done this with and who I haven't.
I like this.
Yes. Good. Okay. And I'm going to put this. This is so weird. You would think I would have like a camera or something that I could move around, but my phone just wasn't doing very well. Okay, so we're gonna make that work. Okay, so we're in first position, demi-plie, and we're gonna put the hands on the shoulders. We're gonna have a nice flat back and a long neck. And what I'd like you to do is keep the foot flat on the wall, and you're gonna press the knees until they're straight. Good. Okay, and then you're going to releve onto demi-pointe on the wall. Good, and then you're going to releve onto point on the wall, and you won't move back much. Good. And so what I'm looking for in this is maintaining the rotation in the hip, keeping the legs straight, and the position of their pointed toe when they're on the wall. And go ahead and go back to demi-plie on the wall for me, ladies. The other thing I'm looking for is that both feet are working equally the same amount. And so sometimes you'll have a student press one foot harder than the other. It's very obvious in this exercise. So one more time, just pressing the leg to straight. Good, and then both feet working equally as you press to demi-pointe, and then working to point through the tips of the toes. Okay, so those are kind of my 3 tells. And you guys can stand up. We're going to come over here to the bar. Those are my 3 tells for whether a student is ready for point. And then there are a lot of exercises that you can do to prepare them for point. And so we're going to go through a couple of those right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is our releve combination, right, with our eleves and our releves. I'm going to put this right here. And I think what I'm going to do, in the mirror, okay, good. I can see you. Will you take your sweater off for me? And we're going to talk about hips too in a second because I got a question about that as well. All right, so just stand in parallel position at the bar. And so you guys have done this a couple times before, so we're just going to go ahead and begin. We're going to start with 8 eleves in parallel position, going straight up and down. Go ahead and 1 and down and 2 and down. And so what I'm looking for is that the knees are pulled up nice and tight, and that when we elevate up, we're right over the big toe and we're not sippling out. Good, 7, and then we're really squeezing the heels down into the ground. And then we're going to do the releve, so demi-plie and press up. Good, and so we're doing 8 releves in this position as well. Also a good chance for you to double check that the abs are pulled up, right, and the breastbone and the shoulders are where they belong. Very good. I think this is 6, yeah, and 7. Good, and turn out to first position, and we go back to the eleves. 1, and so as soon as they turn out, they're going to lose a little bit of rotation, so we've got to double check that the seat is engaged. This is also a good time to double check that the shoulder is directly over the hip. Good, 5, and sometimes I like to come and put my hands under the heels and have press down into the floor. Push my hands down. Push, 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 push. Good. Continue at 7. And so that's going to let me check the strength of the Achilles tendon. Then we go into demi-plie and press up. Good. And really rotating and activating the seat. And so this is a combination that I expect any student who wants to be doing point work should be doing this releve combination every day. Okay. And then we go to second position. And it can just be a small second. Now, right about here is where it's going to start to really burn. And so we're going to, again, 8 elevates. And we're really pulling the inner thighs together and spiraling. We don't want to be locking into the quads. And so the more you're activating the inner thighs and reaching through the ground with the feet, pulling up through the ribs, pulling up through the waist, activate the, that's just a little bit more, there you go. And was that 8? And then demi-plie and press up. And again, right here is where the quads are going to want to lock in. And so we really want to activate the inner thighs. So we're pulling the legs together and spiraling. And that's going to keep the thighs from locking up too much. 6 and 8, and lower the heels. Good. Also important, we don't go too fast. If we end up doing this, then it's like we're just bouncing our Achilles tendon, and that's completely useless. So then we're going to actually go to our weaker foot. You both know which is your weaker foot. Okay, so we're going to do weaker foot on cervical plie. And we're going to do 4 elevates on the weaker foot, just the elevates, no relevates in this position. 1, good, and I'm going to double check that there's no wiggling happening. For very weak students, there's going to be a lot of sort of jumping of the ankle and switch to the stronger foot. And up, good, 2, and 3, and 4, and go back to the weaker foot again. Up, good, and 2, and 3, and maintaining the turnout in the seat, and 4. Good, and so if I can, Caroline, just go up one more time for me. And so this, another really good tell would be to watch the foot as she goes down as slow as she possibly can. And if you see any sort of bouncing or wiggling happening, wiggling back and forth, or jumping of the ankle, go up and show me some jumping coming down, if you know what I mean. So, well, that's kind of a claw. Okay, go back up again. And so what would happen with a weaker ankle was it would go chunk, and then chunk, and then chunk. It would just kind of go down in pieces. Yeah. Yeah, kind of like that. There would be no sort of slow, controlled manipulation. I just popped my wrist. It's so much better. Okay. Let's see. I really shouldn't get down on the ground unless I can get back up again. And what do I do with articulation? Oh, that's Miss Laura's combination. Okay, do you have your ballet slippers? Go ahead and put them on. We're going to do our undo combination, and then we're going to do the dégagés with the releve that you like so much, Caroline.
Oh, yay.
Okay, and so this is a combination that I did another YouTube video on it at a different time. This is just a really good combo for working through the ball of the foot, working through the turnout, keeping the hips square. It's just a really good standard exercise. So I'm actually going to move my computer again. I think that'll work. I'm going to move the bar too. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so if you can go to the bar, and it's a little slanted. So we're going to be in 5th position. And we're not going to do it with music or anything. We're just going to do real slow. I'm talking you through it. So we're going to do 1 and 2. We're going to tandu to the front, working through the foot, and closing 5th. Good, and then we're going to tandu again, tandu to the front, and close in demi-plie. Good, and so right in this section of the closing, go back out again to tandu. Okay, stretch the legs straight. As the student closes in plie, go ahead, close in plie, we're going to make sure that the heel gets onto the ground and that you're really squeezing into 5th. Good, and then again, stay in plie for me, plie and tandu out. Good, and then again, same thing here. As soon as the heel gets back onto the ground, you really want to compress. Close in your plie position. Yes, and really, really pressing and wrapping and pressing the knee back, and tandu out in plie. And then we're going to lengthen the leg and stretch the standing leg straight. Good, and demi-plie again one more time for me. In this, go ahead, demi-plie this leg. In this position, you want to really make sure that as we stretch the standing leg, the working leg is really reaching, almost like you're trying to grow the tandu. Go ahead, stretch the standing leg and lengthen. Yes, very nice. Then we're going to work to the ball of the foot. Yes, and just the ball of the foot. We're going to really make sure that we get the highest arch that we possibly can in this position, and then using the muscles under the toe to push the toe up, then working to the heel. Yes, and then same thing, push the foot up. I call this a foot push-up for my younger ones, all the way up to the toe. Good, and then we're going to go to demi-plie in fourth position. Yes, and right here, this is where we lose some of the rotation, and we lose the hip structure a little bit. So we want to make sure that everything is totally lined up. We're going to releve in fourth position, spiraling both legs equally. Demi-plie, turn out more as you plie. Tourniquet going forward. And close in fifth in the back. Good, and so we would just do, yeah, you put your arms down. We would just do that combination to the front, and to the back, and to the side, and to the side. Let's turn around so we don't get too tired on one side. Okay. You would think I would have like a little rolly thing. That would be so great, wouldn't it? A little rolly thing. I don't have a rolly thing. Okay, we're gonna do the dégagé combination that we've gone back to. So from fifth, we have 3 dégagés to the front, and 1 and 2 and 3, and then dégagé, releve, and balance at the same time. Yes, you just stretch the arm out to the side. Okay, and then we go back to sous-sus and close. Do it to the side real quick, and when we tend to lose it to the side, dégagé and dégagé and dégagé. And so when we dégagé, releve, we want both legs to press equally off of the ground. Good. And it's so easy to lose the turnout in that position. So we really want to make sure that we're in the right position, that we're lengthening all the way through the foot, and then we go to sous-sus in the back, and close, and then to the back, and 1 all the way to fifth, 2 and 3, and push releve, to make sure that nice and long here. And again, with tapping that knee, making sure that we're totally lengthened all the way through the tips of the toes, sous-sus, and come down. And then again to the side, really working on that slice. That's much better. And push. Good, finding the position. And then ideally, we would be able to let go of the arm and balance. Here, there you go. And sous-sus foot, and come down. So those are some of the exercises that I give at the bar. We're doing pretty good on time, actually. TheraBands. I love me some TheraBands. Okay. This is great because I have both of you. I can show how to have one student help the other student, so we can take turns doing this. Okay, so, yeah, go ahead and take your shoes off. Yeah, probably could have thought my one through better. And then roll your ankle tights up. Let me just double check and see how we're doing as far as questions. Okay. All right, so I am going to move the bar a little bit. Yep. And Carolyn, go to that side of the bar. I want you to stay on this side of the bar. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to have you work Caroline's ankle. Okay, so you're going to stand in parallel. Okay, you're going to take this band and you're going to press it flat against her foot like this and hold it there so that there's no wiggle room. But you don't want it stretched, so it's still loose, but you also don't want it aggy like that. So you're going to hold that band. And this is, again, a great exercise for students to work with each other. Okay, and then Caroline is going to releve against the band, just into parallel position. Good, and lower the heel. Very nice, and then go ahead and do it again. And lower the heel. And so that's going to work the fibulars, not fibulars, but it's the other one I couldn't remember earlier. What was it called? It's the anterior. That's the, on the tibia, the tibial bone, the muscle that is on the front of that bone. Okay, let's go ahead and switch. So Sarah, go ahead and stand up and go to that side of, actually no, stay on this side, that'll work better. And face the mirror. Caroline, come over here. We're going to use this band And you're going to roll away. Okay, and we're going to put the band under her ankle. Oops. Under her arch like this. I lied, you do to be on the other side. And you're going to pull it like this. And then you are going to lower your heel against the band. Good. Okay, up. Good, and then press down and lower. Good, okay, go ahead and let go of the band. And so those are two great TheraBand exercises. Ladies, go ahead and sit down for me for just a second. There's a seated exercise that you can do to strengthen the feet. And so we are going to, let me grab a couple more bands too. This one to you. And you can have this one. I don't know if I've actually done this one with you guys before. I think you're both pretty strong when we go. So you're going to pick a foot and you're going to loop the band. Then you're going to take both pieces of the band and put it under both of the other foot. Good. You're going to take your ball and put it right between, like right above the knee. Yeah, just so that you have a little bit of resistance. Okay, and then you can adjust how hard you're pulling here. And so this is, and then you would articulate the one that is halfway around. Okay, and so this is an excellent exercise for the fibularis brevis, which keeps us from sickling on point. So if this is the one that we're pointing and flexing, go ahead, point. As we flex, we're making sure that the foot is nice and lined up. And we're not going to let it go this way or let it go that way or jump up. We're going to very carefully let it come all the way back up to flex. So that's going to, double check and make sure that this muscle is nice and strong, which is how we make sure that we're not sickling when we get up onto it. And this is a much better exercise. You can put the band down. This is a much better exercise than this one, which everybody has seen before. And Lisa Howell has made a video on this, and I'll put it in the sidebar when I'm done. Pointing into the band like this can be very dangerous because you're creating a lot of tension within the intrinsic muscles here in the foot. So then your muscles cramp up, and then the teacher says, oh, you're just weak, you need to do more strengthening, and then you end up doing more of those TheraBand exercises. It's like a vicious circle. You don't ever get any better. You just end up in more pain, which we want to avoid at all costs. Last exercise with the, second to last exercise with the TheraBand, we're going to wrap the feet. You guys are strong, you can give it a good double wrap. Make sure you stretch it pretty well. Yep. Just like that, that's fine. Yep, and give it a good stretch. And you're going to wing your feet a bit, as if you're trying to turn out to first position without using your turnout. Oh, okay. And so that's going to, you can see how much mobility, they can't see. You can see how much mobility I have in my feet here. I have a very, very strong fibularis brevis because my feet are naturally sickled and I have no choice but to be strong. So I'm actually going to take your band here. So you're going to open up the feet there. And so it's all of this right up here along the side. You feel it up on the side of your legs. Okay. And then close back up into parallel again and open the feet and close back up. So that's an excellent exercise for making sure that this muscle stays really strong, again, so that we don't have any sickling on point. So it'd be a good one for you to do extras up with that one foot. And then last exercise, take the band and put it around your big toe. It's kind of hard with a large band. I have some smaller loops that I use sometimes with the younger kids. Yeah. So you're just going to point the ankle, just the ankle. Okay, and then you're going to just try to point the big toe. Good, so you're articulating just the big toe and then carefully let it come up without any sort of popping or jumping. Good. Okay, because the big toe muscle is the one that gets us from demi-point up onto point, right? And so you want to make sure that that muscle is strong enough to support you. Good, and go ahead and pull back. Good. Okay, and one more. Push. Yes. Good, good, good. And hold. Very nice. Good, okay. You guys can go ahead and just put the bands over there in my pocket in the walls. Yeah. Mm-hmm. we're going to switch to, I've got one more awesome thing to show. That is spin boards. So, I do not use these to teach turns. And there will be another video at some point on the dangers of using spin boards to actually spin. I think it's a horrible idea and it shouldn't be done, but they're very useful for point training. So go ahead and put both feet on the board. Let me just make sure that my screen's in a good spot. Back up a little bit. That'll have to work. Okay, so we're going to start with, want to make sure that the legs are completely parallel. Yeah, you might be a little close to the bar, that's fine. So the legs are completely parallel. And we're going to have to open you up a little bit because when we turn out, you're going to clump your glutes together. Push you this way a little bit. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that they're rotating from the hip. This is an amazingly powerful exercise to do, particularly for younger students between the ages of 8 to 12, because sometimes they don't understand how to spiral their legs. So first thing we're going to do is make sure that the legs are straight, that the hips are lined up, the shoulders are lined up, the shoulders are down, the ribs aren't sticking out, everything is lined up and pulled up and straight, and then we're going to spiral the legs into first position. Very good. And then come back into parallel. And so if a student cannot turn out to first position, but then also control themselves going back to parallel, that tells me that they have absolutely no rotation control within the deep lateral rotators. The other thing that you can do is you're going to turn out to first and demi-plie at the same time so that you're bending and spiraling. Good. And then go back to straight. Yes, and we've done that exercise a couple times. I call that a plie out. And stretch all the way straight. Good. And so that's just the same thing that allows the dancer to control the rotation movement. It's also a very common correction for a teacher to tell a student to turn out when they land their jump. And so if you can train this plie turnout motion, then this becomes muscle memory. And then when they're turned out and they land a jump, then they're still rotating. So it's an excellent training tool. Now we're going to demi-plie. Good. We're going to turn out the right leg. Yes, and turn it back in. And then turn out the left leg. And turn it back in. And then turn out both legs. And let's stretch the legs straight. Good. Keeping the spiral and keeping the seat and the ribs. And then turn back to parallel. So that's another great exercise that we can do. Let's stand on one foot and I'll check your other board. Cool. And we're going to go into retire. Okay, so we've done this one before, right, too? Okay. So we're going to start with turning out the working leg out to the side, and we're going to make sure, just the working leg, we're going to make sure that the standing leg stays parallel while we're turning out the working leg. That's a very difficult sort of isolation to do and turn back parallel. Then we're going to keep the working leg still as we rotate the standing leg. Another very difficult thing to do. Go ahead, turn on the standing leg. And what's going to happen is the hips are going to want to go this direction. And so come back to parallel for me. And this is very common, but it's an awesome tool to kind of show your dancer exactly where the muscle weakness is think about this hip pressing forward as you're turning the standing leg. Okay, go ahead and turn out again. Really push this forward. That's better. And come back into parallel. Good. And then we're going to turn both legs out into your pirouette position. Go ahead and turn out. Good. And turn back in. Good. And so you can put your legs down. And so that is an excellent pirouette training tool. If a dancer cannot do that, they have no business doing pirouettes, right? Because pirouettes take a lot more strength and control than standing on a board and turning your legs out. Okay. Let's see what else I have on the list today. Big toe, pressing the heel. TRX. Yeah, we're doing good on time too. Okay, so we're gonna pop back over here to my suspension trainer real quick. Lovely sounds. How's your shoulder doing? Not good. Okay, just checking. So Caroline, now I'm going to have you do. Have we done this before? I think we did it a couple weeks ago. I'm going to shorten these. You don't need to do this on. This is a suspension trainer. The popular brand is TRX. They're great. I got this one on Amazon for $40 instead of $100. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you hold the arms like this, and you're going to step back so that you are in a straight line. You can see I'm kind of in a backwards plank. And I'm going to extend the arms out, keeping the shoulders down and not letting the back round like this. And then you're going to bend the elbows out to the side and pull yourself up and come back to it. Okay, and I'm going to do it. Just a little bit closer. There you go. And I want your arms all the way up here. There you go.
Wait, there.
Good. And then extend the arms out. Good. Okay, you got a little bit of back thing going on here. Okay. There we go. Okay. And pull yourself up, elbows out to the side. Good. And then come back down. Good. Do one more for me. Really keep this nice and flat. Elbows out. Good. Okay, stand up. Okay. And so that's going to strengthen the, what's that called? Tricep. Okay, it's also going to work on the lats so that we have control over the arms doing this. I'm sure that you noticed when you were pulling the arms up to here, they wanted to go down, right? And so it's important that we keep the elbows out to the side for that because it's going to strengthen the rotators, okay? I'm going to have you do one laying on the ground, well, not laying on the ground, in a plank position.
Oh, with the feet?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're going to put the feet in the loops. One and two. Okay. Go ahead and walk yourself out to a nice plank. Good. And so, first step would be to make sure that we've got a really good plank and the shoulders are.
Wait, should I keep my feet on the floor?
You're going to pick your feet up off of the ground.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like a swing. It is. It's really bad. Okay. Okay. That's better. Yeah. And so you have to really be in control of your core in this position. So we're going to check the shoulders, right, and make sure that we're not sinking in here. Oh. Yeah. Core strength. Bring your arms a little bit closer to you. There you go. Okay. Try it again. And lift the legs. Well, you can't lift the legs. They're in a loop. There you go. Bring this up. That's better. Okay, now I want you to do something really challenging. Okay, from here, with both legs out, your legs are up. You're going to bring one leg into passes to the side and then bring it back up. I'll make sure you don't fall and hit the wall. There you go. Good. And do the other leg. Yes. Good. Okay, come down. Harder than it looks. Definitely harder than it looks. But it's a really good tool to be in control of the rotation and being able to turn out to your most and finding that naturally, not forcing it. Because obviously, if you got your legs hanging in a loop, you can't force your turnout. There's no floor, right? Okay, let's tackle the foam roller real quick. And then I want to talk about hips and the bumps, and then we'll put your point shoes on, okay? So Sarah, why don't you come and do this one for me? So Caroline, if you want to actually go ahead and put on your point shoes. Have we used foam roller in school or anything, in soccer? So we did another video on this with Marissa for the conditioning for dancers earlier in the week. I think it was on Friday. It was part of that for the conference. But I'm going to have you roll out your IT band. The IT band is a fascia, so it's not a muscle and it's not really a tendon. It's sort of its own category. And fascia can stretch, but it doesn't stretch back. And so I wanted to do this anyway. Let me grab my TheraBands. I want to show something. Okay. So I want you to hold this end here. I want you to hold this end there. And I'm going to hold them real well because I'm going to stretch them. Okay, and let's put this one on top of the other one, like this. Okay, so we're going to say that this is a leg. Okay, this is your leg. This is your quadriceps, and this is your hamstring. So this is the top of the body, and this is the bottom of the body. And this is basically how muscles work. Right now, both of the muscles are fully extended. I'm going to stretch the quadriceps. We're going to stretch the top one. Okay, and now this one is lengthened, or is compressed. Okay, so this is the muscle that we're working really hard. Let's say we're doing an attitude. This is the shorter muscle, so this is the one that is engaged, and the quadricep is lengthened. In order for the quadricep to engage, the hamstring, the leg, and the muscle in the back has to work. So we're going to switch the muscle. So this one is going to shorten, and then you're going to pull that one. Okay, so muscles are constant opposites. It's always one of them is working and the other one is not, or the other one is working and the other one is not. So you can't have both stretched at the same time. It doesn't work. It's always in opposition. Thank you. And so, being said, fascia, as I said, it will stretch out, but it doesn't stretch back. So we do have to make sure you don't have this problem. I don't have this problem. I feel like you and Emma have this problem. You're very, very stretchy in your IT bands. But once it stretches out to a certain point, it doesn't really stretch back. So you do have to make sure that we don't overstretch it. Like I said, this is not a problem for either of us. So what we're going to do real quick is, I'm just going to get on the floor and show it real quick. I am going to place my hip on the roller, okay, and then I'm going to put this foot over here. And then I'm going to roll my leg this way and then roll it back again all the way up through my hip. You can also, stack your legs like this so you get more pressure, but it's a little bit more painful and good if you've been rolling a whole lot. So go ahead and lay on your side. Yes, and so you're going to put it under your hip. Yep, and then this foot is kind of your supporting foot, and it's going to move you this way and move you that way. So go ahead and roll yourself that way, good. And then you're going to roll yourself back that way again. And so that's an awesome stretch for stretching out the IT band. You can go as far as the knee. You don't want to go past the knee. Go ahead and do it one more time. And so we're going to stop right about here and then go back through. Okay, you can also do the thighs. You can do the hamstrings. We can do the bottom. Go ahead and get off the roller real quick. I am going to show a real quick way to stretch the upper back. So I want you to lay this way. So put your feet over there and towards me. Okay, I'm going to put this, set up just a little bit. I'm going to put this under your back. Okay, go ahead and lay back on it. It's going to be weird. Okay, and so I want you to be right centered in it. And I want you to open your arms out this way. Good. And so you should feel kind of an opening in the ribs. And the back is almost falling over this way. This is a really good way to stretch out the serratus and what are those called? Rhomboids. So stretch out the rhomboids after they've been working really hard. Let's say we're doing a lot of port de bras one day, and you kind of have some pain up here in the back. This is a really good stretch for that. Go ahead and sit up. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay. So there are more suspension exercises on my channel. I did a whole suspension training for dancers video, so you can definitely check that out if you want to see it. I'm just going to make sure that we didn't have any more questions come in. Okay. Okay, great. Yes, of course. Yes, replays will be available of this. There will be DVDs for purchase, or that you can download it. I'm going to have a fully condensed video file where everybody can just download the file. You've got it. You don't have to worry about it. It won't be on YouTube, but it'll be available for download. So, Sarah, thank you so much for coming in. You are all done for the day. You can go ahead and pack up, call your mom if you need to. I'm going to have you do some point work with me as if you were a brand new point student, okay? So I'm going to kind of reset my computer and my layout here real quick. Are these your shoes?
Yeah.
Okay. So that I can plug in the computer. I didn't want it today. Yes, absolutely. Will you grab all my spin boards and whatever? Okay, I think it'll work. It'll cut off your head, but that's okay. No head. Okay. So, what we jump to, this is a point shoe. Well, it was. For those of us who don't know how point shoes work, just, you know. This is a Grishko. Not every shoe is made the same. But I wore a Grishko for a really long time. Then I wore a block, and now I'm back to a Grishko because I didn't like blocks. But this is just the inside of the shoe, and I've cut it in half so you can kind of see it. A lot of people assume that this part right here that your foot goes into is made of wood, or as the little kids like to say, rocks, because apparently that's a thing. I asked them, you know, what do you think this is made of? And they always say, rocks. No, it's not. That would be painful. Actually made of, if you can see, this brown stuff is actually like a burlap material, and it's been soaked in a tremendous amount of strong glue, and then there's a layer of cardboard in here, and then this here on the top is muslin, and then there's muslin on the inside as well. Some shoes are made of cardboard instead of this this linen burlap material. But Grishkos are woven, the burlap is woven, and then it's soaked in glue, and then they put it around a last or a mold, kind of like paper mache. They put layer after layer after layer on it. They bake it in an oven. Then the shank, which starts all the way down in here at the very bottom and comes all the way up here, this is the first layer of the shank, is usually made of cardboard or leather. Right, and then here on the side we have another, this is like the outside back layer, and then we have a secondary inside layer made of leather and compressed cardboard, and then we have the final like supporting shank, which is right in here. I have no idea what it's made of. It's super strong. I've had this shoe since, I want to say 2011, and it's still in one piece. Now granted, I have a very flat foot, but it's not broken. That's amazing to me. And then it's nailed in to the box, and then they put fabric over top so that it doesn't look ugly. So that's the inside of a point shoe. So I am going to teach Caroline a point lesson as if she has never done point before in her entire life. So this would be a absolute beginner point class, how I tackle it, how I teach it, and what I look for, and how I warn to prevent injury, because I find, especially for point, if you can catch the student and correct them before they make the mistake, then they'll do it correctly every single time, and then you have less chance of injury. So we're going to face the bar in parallel, and you'll want to be a little bit farther away than you normally would be, because when you go up on point, you're going to be closer to the bar than you expect to be. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have you put this foot up onto demi point for me. Very good. I'm going to double check and make sure we're all lined up over the big toe. Then I'm going to have you push that foot up onto point, just onto the box. I'm going to look at the back of the foot here and make sure that the shank is lined up with the heel. Sometimes I will actually pull the heel off. I won't do it now because your elastics are sewn, but particularly in the fitting process, I will pull the heel back and check that the heel isn't going off to the side from the shoe, and then go ahead and put the foot back onto dummy point. And then I'll like to put my hand under here, and I want you to press my hand down into the ground. Push, 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 push. Good. And so anytime you come off point, you're going to create that resistance and press your heel down as if my hand is there. Anytime you come down off of point at all. Okay, we'll skip the other foot. Go ahead and pick up your foot and put it up onto point. Good. And I want you to press the foot over. And we're really going to find just how far you can push. And I'm going to put my hands on her feet so that we can't accidentally sickle. Okay, and I'm going to double check and make sure that we're not going any weird direction. So you should feel the shoe bending into your arch. Yeah? Okay. And again, I'm going to make sure that we're not going out a little bit. Which foot is it that kind of likes to sickle a little bit? Okay. Okay, good. And then go ahead and put the foot back down. So the first exercise that we're going to do, actually, let me have you go ahead and roll up on the point here in a second. So what's going to happen as soon as you roll up on the point for the very first time, like I said, you're going to be closer to the bar than you think you're going to be. Your knees are going to bend because your hamstrings are going to engage. Your hips are going to move forward. You're going to lose control of the seat, and your shoulders are going to go back. All of that's going to happen at one time as soon as you go up on the point. So it's important that we make sure that everything stays really tall. So I want you to start by pressing the heels up onto demi point. Good, and we're going to double check the hips are nice and lined up and the seat is activated. The shoulders are where they belong. When you press to point, I want you to pull yourself up like you're pulling yourself from the top of the head. Good. And we're nice and lined up, and we saw the hamstrings tried to engage there and bend your knee a little bit, but you kept the knee nice and tight. That's good. And you gotta look at that foot. Just gotta look on that foot, man. I don't like these shoes on your feet at all.
I hate these shoes.
I hate these shoes. We're not getting these shoes again. You see how badly it's going out to the side here, and your shank is completely.
The shank.
It's not lined up at all.
Like it even hurts to walk.
Okay. Yeah. I really want to get you a pair of Grishkas because blocks have this problem. Okay, and then we're going to go on to demi point. Good, and we're controlling the feet. And then as we go down, we want to make sure that the hips stay lined up. We're still activating the seat, pulling the tummy up. Good. And so as a beginner point student, if this is her first lesson ever, we would literally do 5 of these, and that would be it. Point class. We might do some rock and rolls, which we're going to do now. So you're going to press up onto point. Good, and then we're going to meet both feet up onto point. Good, and then we're going to roll this foot down onto demi point and then onto flat. And we're going to press this foot over. And then you're going to do again, meet up on the point and switch. Good, so we're working on really pressing the heel down and then really pressing into the arch and switch again. Working through the demi point position is super important there. It's so easy to just go in one piece. Go ahead and just pop your foot up in one piece for me. Okay, that was articulating. Go down. Put your feet down. I want you to go up on point the incorrect way. I want you to just, okay, that's one way to do it. Come down again. I want you to not go through demi point. I know that's really weird for me to ask you to do that, but I want you to just bring the whole foot up and go up onto point push, right? So it's extremely important that we don't skip the demi point position because now we're not activating the big toe muscle at all. It's just sitting there because we didn't activate it to get up there. Go ahead and roll back down again and pulling good, and then articulate back up on the point for the demi point. Yes, very nice. Okay, and roll back down. Good. Okay. Again, that would basically be a first point lesson. We would do as many of those as we could until the legs started to shake. Turn out to first position for me. Go up onto point. Good. And so I'm going to have you break at the ankle again like we did before. Go ahead. Bend the knees. Good.
I feel so weird.
I know, it's bizarre, and you don't want your feet to pop over like they just did when I let go. Yeah, so you're actually pulling the ankles back. And so, again, this is a great tell because it's going to tell you exactly how strong the ankles are. This is really difficult for you to control.
It's so ugly.
It does look ugly, but it's a really good tool. In fact, like with me not even holding you, I can see your left leg shaking a little bit. And so that's telling me which foot is stronger. Go ahead and stretch the legs all the way straight. Good, and come down. Good. Okay, how do your feet feel?
Good.
Good. So I want you to do one more exercise. We're going to do our snakes and our reverse snakes. So we're going to demi-plie. Good, and then we're going to press up onto point. Good, and then stretch the legs all the way straight. And really press against as you roll down. Pull the legs up to press down. Good, 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 good. Okay, and so in this position, it's very easy to lose the rotation and lose the hips. Okay, so I want you to just double check and make sure everything is right. And that we're not too far back. We're pulling up out of the back and we're activating the seat. So we're going to demi-plie and really turn out. Good, and then you're going to go up on the point. Now right about here is important. Go ahead, go all the way up on the point. We're going to make sure that we really activate the seat here and that we're spiraling the legs. In fact, when you're on point in your plie, you have more rotation, always, just because it's a shorter point from these two. So you always have more rotation in demi-plie. Okay, then as we stretch the legs straight, we're going to press down here, pull up here. Good, 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 good. Okay, and then we're going to try to keep as much of that rotation as we can as we go back down flat. In the seat. Good. Very nice. Okay, and then reverse it for me. Elevate straight up. Good. Okay, and demi-plie, and turn out and spiral as much as you can. That's better. Okay, activating the seat and press down through the feet. Yes. There's always a little bit of a jump there. And then stretch straight. Good. Okay, very nice. Thank you. You could go ahead and take your shoes off. And you are all done for the day. Thank you very much. So that, again, would be just an absolute beginner point lesson for a student who has never done point before. So I hope that was useful for people. I'm just going to now go through. Man, I ended right on time. That never happens. That's cool. I'm going to look through some of the questions that I've gotten, and I'm just going to tackle them until we're done. And then that will be it for the weekend. Wow, what a weekend. So one question that I got was avoiding burnout. As a teacher, this is so hard, guys. It is so easy to get stuck in a rut, to do the same thing every single week and never change it. There's a couple things that I do. I have to get a sip of water, I'm dying. There's a couple things I do when I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. The first thing I do is I watch YouTube videos. I watch YouTube videos of professional dancers because it's like it's a break for the eyeballs. I watch videos of competitions. I watch open classes, like master classes, company classes. I love going through the World Ballet Day videos, and I pick out combinations that I really like, and I write them down. And it's best for me to type them out, because if I write them down, I won't be able to read them. And that's kind of my starting point, because sometimes after you've come up with the same combos over and over and over and over, it's like, I can't be creative. I can't think of anything else. I don't know. Let's do this one frappe that we've done 50,000 times. Like, I don't want to do that. I want something new that's challenging to me just as much as it is for my students. And so, for instance, this past World Ballet Day, I stole a combination from but it was a petit allegro, 2 sautés in first and 2 changements, and then an échappé in fifth or something like that. And almost all of my petit allegros start 2 jumps in first, 2 jumps in second, almost all of them. And I didn't realize that until I taught them this other combo. And instead of going first, first, fifth, fifth, they went first, first, second, second. And I was like, yeah, that's not what the combination was. And so that kind of shone a light on me as a teacher, like always using the same combos over and over again. I'm conditioning my students and kind of changing their muscle memory in a way that they're not necessarily versatile. So up with new combinations. YouTube is a great place to go. The other thing I did when I could still pass as a teenager was I would actually go to auditions. And I'll be totally honest, I am not a good dancer, okay? I'm an excellent teacher, but I am not a good dancer. And so I would go to these auditions and it would just be like horrifyingly embarrassing. But it would be a great way for me to learn what other teachers do, what kind of other corrections teachers give, you know, new combinations that I hadn't thought of before, watching other dancers work, and seeing a difference in the style. So like watching one dancer do a combination one way and watching another dancer do a combination the other way, and kind of watching what pieces they chose to accentuate what their energy looked like was very refreshing to me. And so a couple of years ago, I brought Emma, one of my students at the time. She's now a teacher here at Stage Door Dance, but I brought her to an audition. I told her to remember all the combos that she could, and we wrote them down when we got out. And then I would just look through the window, like for the entire. I think she did 2 auditions that day, so I was just looking through UNCSI's window. It's like this big. And just trying to like watch the teacher and watch the combos and just kind of get a fresh perspective, so to speak. And so I found that to be very useful. As far as avoiding burnout, I feel like short-term goals are the answer to that. If when I feel burned out are the times where I'm like, oh my God, it's only October. Oh my God, it's only November. I have until June. This is ridiculous. Like, that's when I start to feel really kind of down. But if I think to myself, okay, I have 3 weeks before our next observation, and these are all the things that I want to accomplish, then I can put together like a short-term goal for myself. And that kind of helps me keep everything in perspective, so to speak. Oh, I totally forgot to do the hip thing. I was going to do the hip thing. The tailbone. How many people have heard that before? Tucking the tailbone is so dangerous, guys. It is so dangerous. And I've got almost an entire chapter in my book that I'm working on dedicated to this. Like I said, I'm hoping that I can put it out in January. I can't guarantee it because it depends on when I can get my models in here. And I've got, you know, 3 or 4 ladies who have agreed to be models, but crazy. But the hip thing, I'm going to stand up and show this. There are 2 bones in the front, and if this is the iliac crest, and that's sort of the winged part of the hip bones that kind of looks like a fan. There's these 2 knobs here on the front called the anterior superior iliac spine, and we shorten it to ASIS. Okay, and these are the knobs that if you lay on the ground too long, they kind of start to get a little bruised. Okay, and then there's bones on the other side as well called the PSIS, and if you're thin enough, it's where the dimples in your back are, or if you can't find them, you just kind of have to feel around for them. So I'm going to show you with my fingers where they are. This is my spine right here, and then these are where my PSIS are located. And it's difficult to find, and so what I like to do with a student is I like to kind of help them feel. I'll take their hands and press them around until we find the ASIS and the PSIS. So I put my hands on their hands, and they're the ones that are touching their body. And I think that's important just because of the area that we're working on. And so the thing about the ASIS and the PSIS is if you have both of them found out, and I love to put little stickers on them, if you find both of them, you want them both to be across the street from each other, as I like to say. You do not want the ASIS to be higher than the PSIS, and you don't want vice versa. That is your tell for where the tailbone belongs. You don't want to tell them to tuck. This does not work for everybody. I have students who can do this and make their little triangle and point the triangle to the ground, and their PSIS are still higher than their ASIS. I know it is for me. So that never worked for me. And then I have other students who I tell them to tuck, and they just like crazy. It's nuts. And that puts so much pressure on the knees. It's unbelievable. It stretches out the iliopsoas, right? So we talked about the psoas yesterday. So the ilios and the psoas both sort of do this and make the iliopsoas. And the iliopsoas is the only muscle that joins the legs. Yeah, it's sort of like, it's the one main hip flexor that you have. It's the only one that's its only job. There's a lot of other muscles that join the hip to the leg, but the iliopsoas, that's its only job. Like the rectus femoris starts at the knee and it goes up here, but it also is part of the hamstring. So the iliopsoas is like, that's its job, is to connect those two things. And we'll just stretch. I'll show you some stretches for that in a minute. But it tends to get strained and locked up, especially when we have a lot of like développés and hold, or grand battements, and then the standing leg isn't totally lined up, or you end up dropping or scooping in the hip during the grand battement. That's going to strain and stretch out the iliopsoas. That's going to cause a lot of problems. And then, like I said, around the knee, I remember distinctly in college, I took an anatomy for dance class. It was the best class I've ever taken in my entire life. Unbelievable class. And we learned about this, and my teacher helped us find a neutral and healthy spine position. And I realized that I had been walking around campus, and probably around my entire life, tucked and dropped like this forever. And I had so much pain in my knees, and I was walking and I was like, you know what, my iliopsoas is overstretched right now. And I had to consciously rotate the pelvis back out to release that muscle instantly. I had the knee pain that had been plaguing me for, at least 2 years at that point, because I went to Western, we're up in the mountains, right? We're walking up hills like this. It's like, yeah, no wonder your knees hurt. So that was a huge thing for me, and that's one of the things that I like to do with students is help them find their ASIS and PSIS, and I think it's really important. There's a lot of teachers that say tuck. That might work for some kids. I know that some kids, just the shape of their bodies, you have to give them something dynamic to understand. You have to give them like a really powerful image. Tuck is pretty powerful. But it's not something that I would tell to everybody, because a lot of kids are going to end up overstraining things. Improving turnout was another question I got. That's going to have to be its own thing. Sorry, I can't tackle that today. I'm in the middle of writing a blog post about it, and I've got about 17 exercises for turnout. So that will have to be its own video. So definitely subscribe to my email or email list if you're not already, so that you can be notified when that comes out. Or you can subscribe to the YouTube page. It's just Haley Mathiat, one word. Back pain and flexibility. This is an interesting one. I find that most back pain is either stemming from bad alignment in the hips, as we just learned with the ASIS and the PSIS, or forced rotation, or bending in the wrong spot. Okay, and so your spine is a gentle S curve, and the bones at the top from under the skull to, I want to say, I don't remember how many it is, it's between 5 and 7, but it's right about where the clavicle starts. It's like right in here. This whole section here is the cervical spine, okay? And the joints of the cervical spine, when they're like this, they can bend, so they can pretty much do anything. They're very flexible. That's why we have a lot of head mobility. Okay, the thoracic spine, which starts right under here and goes to about the middle lower edge of the back, like right under where the ribs end, that's the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is designed to only twist. That's its job. And the joints are designed to twist. They are not designed to bend. They are designed to twist. Okay, that's important. The lumbar spine, which is the lower part of the back, from right under the ribs all the way down to the tailbone, and the last couple bones of the tailbone are called the coccyx. Coxyx, I think. I don't remember. I can't spell, so it's a midpoint. The lumbar spine is designed to bend. It is not designed to twist. So let's talk about ballet for a second. Okay, the cervical spine, we do all sorts of head, port-de-bras, and épaulement. Okay, when we do a cambrai, we bend the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is not designed to bend. It's designed to twist. That's why it's hard. Stretch out the muscles in the thoracic spine to do something that it's not programmed to do. And then the lumbar spine, when we do an arabesque, guess what? It's a twist in the lumbar spine. The lumbar spine's job is to bend. It's not designed to twist. It has very little twisting mobility. And so dancers have to retrain their muscles to do something that their body is not designed to do. That's one of the reasons why ballet is so hard. It's the same thing with stretching the leg to the back. When you do any sort of anything to the back, when you're doing an arabesque or an attitude or a dégagé to the back or anything with your leg behind you, your hamstrings automatically engage, and your hamstring's job is to bend your knee. So when we're in arabesque, we're telling our students to straighten the leg, but that's totally against their anatomical programming. So they have to actually rewire and retrain their bodies to do something that isn't designed for their bodies to do that. So again, that's why ballet is so weird. It's why it's so beautiful and so difficult, because we are literally rewiring and retraining our bodies. We're installing brand new software, and it's hard, man. It's really hard to change your body's natural wiring. But going back to the back flexibility and the back pain, I find that students who have back pain are either using the wrong part of their back, they're using the wrong muscle set in their back, or they are not supported enough in the places that they're supposed to be supported. So let's say they're doing a cambrai to the back and they're bending from the lumbar spine. You're going to end up with back pain. You're probably going to end up with neck pain too, because now your neck is going to be crunched. I don't know if you could hear that, but my neck actually makes a sound when I do that. That's not cool. And then, yeah, like when we do attitudes back or arabesque back, if we're telling the student to put the hip down, but then they're feeling the twist in the lumbar spine, like that's not comfortable. It's not. It's definitely painful. It's a good pain. It's a stretching kind of like muscles, what are you doing to me kind of pain, but it's, and I like to refer to that as discomfort rather than pain. I mentioned that in my interview with Eileen, but yeah, it's definitely almost every back issue in dance is related to either using the wrong part of the back or the back is not being supported by something else. Maybe you're doing a cambrai to the back and the standing leg isn't straight, or you're not turning out from the hip. That can cause back pain. So there's a lot of different things that can go into that. I didn't write down, whoever asked me that question, I didn't write down your name, so if you want to get in touch with me and maybe do a video consultation, that's totally cool. I do video consultations and video sessions where we do something kind of like this. I'd get you online with me and I'd watch you dance and you know, give you some suggestions. Back pain, tucking. We did rolling the IT band. I'm going to do a video on turns, but it's not going to be today. I've got 3 amazing dancers who are just so great at turns, and actually a couple that are not great at turns but have gotten better at turns. And so I'm going to do another sort of video like this where I bring in my dancers and I just pretend that I'm not even filming and I just teach them to turn, and I think it'll be really valuable. I will tell you that the most important part of a turn is your spot. That's what it comes down to. You have to have a good spot. You just do. Along the same lines, I did also get a question about spotting. And there's a lot of different people's opinions on a spot, but I am going to just really quickly show you how I teach a spot to a student. I'm kind of reposition myself here so I have some space to do this. Okay. So let's say that my camera is my mirror. When I teach a spot, the first thing that I do with a young child is I have them stand with their hands on their hips, and we look in the mirror, and as soon as we start doing this, they already move their head. So that's getting them to look in the mirror and turn their body as far as they can, and then we go back the other way and keep the eyes looking in the mirror and turn back as far as we can. And we just do this until they understand the concept. And the catchphrase that Eileen taught me is leave the head, move the shoulder instead. And they love it because it rhymes and it's super adorable. And so we say leave the head, move the shoulder instead. And sometimes I'll actually put my hands on their head and then pull their shoulder this way, just so that they can feel how much mobility they have. Right? And so then we'll do what I call the shuffle and spot. And so I will hold their head still, and they will kind of move and shuffle their feet as far as they can until they can't look anymore. And then they will spot the head, connect with their eyes, and finish shuffling the feet all the way around. And we'll just do that over and over again until they can reconnect with their eyes. So there's 3 parts to a spot. Okay, some people teach 2. I like to think of it as 3 in my mind. So there's the delay where you're leaving the head, right? And then there's that little bitty baby second where you're spotting the head around and you can't see anything. And then there's the return where you connect with your spot again, whether it be the mirror or something over here that you're looking at, and then you can finish your revolution. All 3 are extremely important, and you can't have a good turn without all 3 of them. So some students will do a pirouette and they'll spot the head as soon as they take off. They won't do the delay. They won't leave the head. So they'll need to learn how to leave the head and then return the head and connect with the eyes. Some students will leave the head and then they'll spot, and their eyes will just kind of wander and eventually get back to themselves. You will never get a multiple turn if you do that, ever. Ever. You have to be able to return and find your spot again. And then there are occasionally students that have both but still cannot get a multiple turn. Or they're capable of doing both the delay and the return, but they're still having some issues with their spot. I like to use visualization when it comes to that. So you're here, you're this far. There's a moment where you're not going to see anything, where you're not leaving and you're not finding, you're not connected. It's important to train the dancer's mind to be able to visualize the next place that they need to be. So right as you're about to turn the head, you want to imagine what you're going to see. You want to imagine what you're going to connect your eyes with. You want to sort of anticipate what it's going to look like and see it in your head and feel it in the muscles in your eyes, so that as you're bringing the head around, your brain already knows what you want it to do. And if you want to learn more about visualization, you need to get online and watch some YouTube videos and then look up Eric Franklin and his books, because it's mind-blowing. It is amazing how important visualization is for dancers. And I don't think, I think a lot of teachers use imagery very well, but they only use the imagery that they're taught, and they don't know how to look at a movement and come up with their own imagery for a student based on what they need. And I think that that's really important, but it takes practice. And so that's where Eric Franklin's books come in. So definitely, get your hands on those books. If you want to really, really, really work with students on their turns, Eileen Urick just came out with her new Power Dance Technique series on turns, and it's like a short 20 to 30 minute video. It's amazing. Her system revolutionized my turns, no pun intended. Completely changed the way I think about turns, changed the way I teach them. But yeah, definitely check out that video, and her videos are linked in the sidebar next to her interview on the Beyond the Bar website. Let's see. What else do I have in here? I think I was going to go over taping just really briefly, because it can just be very useful. So I'm going to show 3 taping systems, or 3 taping methods is what I should say. And then, if I don't have any more questions, I'm going to be done. Again, if you want to win a pair of Apollo shocks, you can do that by asking me a question. And I do also have a 10% off your entire order for Apollo shocks. So anybody who doesn't win or wants more than one pair, I'm going to put that coupon code on the website as well, so that you can get it. Amazing. I'm wearing my shocks today, and I love them. It's the only thing that's keeping my feet alive. Normally, if I was barefoot right now, I would already have to put my tennis shoes back on. I wouldn't be able to walk around without shoes on for any length of time. It's just so painful for my feet and my arthritis. Taping. This and this and this. Did I bring the cloth? Okay. I'm going to tape my ankle as if it was injured. Let's see if the best way to do this. That'll be fine. I'm also going to tape my feet as if I'm going to go on point. You can see how high my arch is now. I'm going to have to see if I can find a video or a picture of what my feet used to look like before I forced my foot, before I stretched my arches out, because this was not here. It was totally flat, guys. This arch was not here. I couldn't point my foot. It didn't look like that. And I just want to warn you again, if you haven't already seen my rant on foot stretchers, please don't stretch your foot out with a foot stretcher. It is so bad for you. It is so bad for you. Okay, moving on. So, how to tape your foot if you're going to go on point. This is NextCare. It's probably backwards on the screen. NextCare waterproof foam tape. And it's squishy. It's just not super squishy, but it's just a little squishy. Okay, it's also stretchy just a little bit. So you have to make sure you don't tape your feet too tightly with this stuff, because you will cut off your circulation. So you want to just look at your feet. Okay, and my toes are pretty straight. I don't have like a toe going that way, or toes that are like squished together like this. I don't have any of that. The only issue that I have is over here on my pinky toe. My pinky toe likes to go in a little bit, and my pinky toe is very short, so it's not usually a problem. But if my toe was longer and it was out here and then it would try to go in like that, I would want to put a spacer in here so that the toe ligament and the toe bones are going straight out rather than curving over, because then that can end up with, again, that bone on bone grinding. And so this is what I like to do. I like to take the tape and just set it over. I'm not stretching it. Okay, again, if you stretch the tape too tightly, you're going to cut off your circulation and you won't be able to dance. It's actually more painful. And so I'm just going to set it over like that. And then I like to tape these two toes together, like that. And then I like to tape this one by itself. And again, I'm not stretching the tape. And then my pinky toe, again, because I have that issue with it kind of going in a little bit, I use a little bit more tape. And you can do this for any toe that is kind of curving in a little bit. I take the tape and I just make this little rolled up end right here. And it's going to go on the inside of my toe. So I'm making a spacer out of my tape. And then I'm taping the toe and the spacer. It's a little tricky. It takes some practice. But that's going to keep my toe from going straight out rather than going in like that. And that's great too, because if you don't have spacers, it's expensive. You can also just take a piece of tape like this, and you can just make a little thing like that and put it in between. If you need just a little bit of spacing, if you don't need like a large spacer, that doesn't work well if you do need a lot of spacing. Like if you have a toe that actually is significant amount of space. I know Caroline has to use a spacer. Because if you do let it go in like that, then you're going to end up with some issues, okay? So that's how I tape my toes for point work. Ooh, I've got a nice little scar up here on my foot. And I'm now going to tape my ankle as if I had just injured my ankle or twisted my ankle, and I have no choice but to work on it, which I am going to say this right now. If you twist your ankle, you shouldn't dance on it. You just shouldn't. It is better for you to take a couple days off, get your strength back, than it is for you to have a horrible injury that lasts forever because you didn't want to take any time off. It's just better to rest. Okay, so, but let's say you're at a performance and there is nobody to take over your spot, and it's not a serious twist. It's just like, oh, I kind of rolled over my ankle a little bit, hurts a little bit when I supinate, and I want to just make sure that it don't make it worse. I know for me, when I started dancing after a long period of time, I taped my ankles preventatively. So I taped them knowing that it was possible that I would roll over on my ankles, but I didn't want it to happen. So I taped them, even though I wasn't hurt, I taped them just to make sure that I wouldn't get hurt. That's also okay. Not ideal, and it's not something you want to do all the time. And we mentioned this briefly earlier this weekend when we talked about braces. There's a time and a place for a brace. I'm trying to get my computer in a way that this works. Okay. But if you're wearing a brace all the time, the reason a brace relieves pain and the reason tape relieves pain is because the tape is now doing the muscle's job. So you're going to see the way that I tape my ankle, I'm going to place tape over the places where the muscles are, and the tape is going to take over the muscle's job so that the muscles can relax. If you're wearing a brace or you're wearing tape in class all the time, you're not getting stronger. You're keeping your muscles relaxed, and that's not going to help you. It's good, like I said, if you're every once in a while, if you're in a place where you don't have a choice but to tape, then that's great. But you shouldn't be taping every single day, and you shouldn't be taping before you go into the studio all the time. You should be taping only in cases of emergency. I know for me, a couple months ago, I overdid it in the studio. I did too much. I worked too hard, and I was in so much pain. I was in pain for a week. I taped my ankle for a week because I couldn't walk on it. It was just so painful. And it wasn't torn, it wasn't strained. It was just so tight because I did too many releves that day. And I don't really demonstrate in my classes anymore. So when I did do all that dancing, it was just too much for my leg. Let's see if okay, that'll work. So I'd say I've just sprained my ankle or twisted my ankle. First thing I'm going to do is figure out which muscle is actually injured. Most often it's going to be this right here, which is the fibularis brevis. Okay, the origin point is right here under at the top of the fibia, and it runs all the way down and splits into 4 pieces and joins into the toe. And then there's another one that comes right around here. I don't remember what it's called now. And then it kind of goes under the foot like that. And so what happens when you over-supinate, this is supination and this is pronation, okay? What happens when you over-supinate is this part, which is the insertion, that's where this is point A, this is point B, okay? The insertion gets overstrained and it gets really swollen. And my ballet teacher used to say, oh, you've popped your foot bladder, because it would swell up like a bladder right here. And so that's the first thing I check when a student's complaining of pain, is that this right here, it'll be all blue. It's a little dark on me just because my feet circulation is really bad, but it'll be really swollen. It'll be tender to touch. And then, of course, you can always compare ankles and say, oh, yeah, one is definitely swollen, more swollen than the other. Okay, and so the first thing, once you figure out what is injured, and like I said, most of the time it's the foot bladder or it's the fibularis brevis. I just call it a foot bladder. It's what I learned, and that's what it's going to be called. Is you take cloth tape. Now, this tape is just regular athletic tape. You can get it at the drugstore. It's nothing fancy. It's not expensive. I got 4 rolls for like $10 or something. And it's not stretchy. It doesn't stretch, and that's important. If you're using stretchy tape, it's not going to do a supporting job. It's going to do a different job, which we'll talk about later. But it's not going to support the muscles and relieve the pain. So I'm going to use a very long strip. Okay, and I'm just going to start with a basic support band. So I'm going to put it under the arch here, and I'm going to lay this piece over gently. But then this piece, I'm going to give it a little bit of a pull. And so if I pull it real tight, there's going to be a lot of pain here under the inset. But if I pull it just enough, it's going to realign the foot so that you're not pressing over like this. So you want to make sure that when you do tape the foot, you're taping it lined up, that you're not taping it pronated or supinated. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug. I'm going to come up here, and I'm actually going to cross over the joint this way. And I actually wish I had made that a little bit longer, because then I would like to go a little bit farther. Okay, so I've, again, started under here. This one went right across, and this one I kind of pulled a little bit. And that's why I'm pulling the ankle back into the position that it needs to be in. From that point, it is all strips. It is one strip after another, replacing the muscles. So I'm going to put just a little bit on this end. I'm going to come under here, and this is going to be a piece of tape that does this muscle's job. Okay. Oops. This is going to be a piece of tape. I'm going to put it closer to my heel, and it's going to come up this way, and that is going to do that muscle's job. This, actually, I'm almost out. I might as well just pull it. Oh, that's more than I thought it was. Okay. I'm going to do another one here because we're talking about the fibularis brevis. Again, this doesn't stretch, so you can kind of see that it's curling up a little bit here. That's okay. We're going to do a lot of layers. This is going to do this muscle's job. So I'm just pulling it, and I'm going to do layer after layer. And I'm not going to finish because there's no point. But I'm just going to keep going layer after layer after layer. You can come up around here. I will show you quickly how to support the heel, because that's really important. This is good for plantar fasciitis too. If you have a student that's complaining of heel pain, you can put it around the arch or around the heel like this, and then you pull this piece back like this, and you pull this piece back like this. So I've made like this little harness to go like this around the heel. So you just put piece after piece after piece after piece and pull it up, because again, this is the insertion. So we don't want to stretch a muscle. We want to bring it back to its sort of neutral position. Once you get all the different pieces on, then you're going to take pieces and tape it across this way very gently. You're not going to stretch it, just so that the tape stays attached. And cloth tape sticks to itself. It doesn't stick to your skin. It sticks to itself. So you're going to need to do a base layer. Then you're going to need to do a top layer. Then you're going to need to do another top layer. Then you're going to need to do a layer to keep it all on there. And then ideally, you would wrap it in plastic wrap, and then you would put an ice pack or a bag on the injury, and then put more plastic wrap on it and seal it up real tight so that it's compressed and it's cold, right? And then you can elevate and rest. So then you have your full rest, ice, compress, elevate is kind of the recipe for injury, general recipe for injury. And elevate means put it above heart level. So if you're laying down and you've just got it kind of propped up on a pillow a little bit, that's not elevated enough. You need to lay totally flat down and get it so that your leg is above your heart level. If it's not above heart level, it's not elevated. That's annoying when you have like a wrist or shoulder injury. You have to lay on your side, or you have to like lay on your back and put your shoulder up on it. It's ridiculous. It's so annoying, guys. Hip injury, same thing. You can't really elevate a hip injury. It's, you know, you end up being upside down. It just doesn't work. I'm going to have to do a knee taping video another time because it's very complicated and I don't want to rush it, and I am just about out of time. Actually, I'm a little over time and I've got a thing that I need to go to, but I'm just going to double check real quick and see if there's any more questions in my inbox or my email. Let's see. On my phone. And anyone watching the replay, please send me questions, because I will totally, y'all's questions and y'all's, recommendations are the reason that I have a business, right? Because I can't create a resource if I don't realize that a resource needs to be created. In fact, just today I had a girl contact me and say, hey, I had a really great idea. You should do this. And I was like, that is brilliant. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. Thank you. Now I have a new project. I'm so excited about it. Okay, last little thing I'm going to say before I log off. Cool things coming up. I'm hoping to do this conference again next year. I really am. But I would need it to be, I would need it to sell better. So tell all your friends. And there's going to be DVDs of the conference edited, available for purchase. So tell all your friends about it. And if you liked it, please shoot me an email about all the things that you liked about it, so that I can kind of put together a review page about how great it was. And again, my book, Getting the Point, it's just going to be a real basic, self-published, nothing fancy or whatever. It's going to be a download that you can get off of beyondthebarshop.com. It's called Getting the Point, and it's all pre-point and point one. It's a student manual, and it's going to have pictures, and it's going to have exercises, and it's going to have little links to videos that you can go to, and depending on how technologically advanced I end up getting, I might even be able to embed video into the ebook. We'll see. So that's coming up, and again, I'm really hoping to have it out by January. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and log off and put up the code for the 10% off your entire order for Apollo Shocks. And then I will do a live video on the Beyond the Bar Facebook page announcing the winner of the giveaway for the free pair. So tune into that. And thank you guys all so much for being a part of this. I'm so excited. It was a wonderful weekend. Again, replays will be available, and if you want a DVD as well, you'll be able to purchase that pretty soon. So thanks again, guys, and bye!